지도자 김정은 동지께서 미 합중국 대통령과의 역사적인 첫 상봉과 회담을 위하여 평양을 출발하셨습니다.
Oh, what? Really?
경의하는
I couldn't resist it, boys. I couldn't resist it. I thought, you know, what better way to get into is Kim Jong-gone tonight than to have, you know, that.
미 합중국 대통령과의 역사적인 첫 상봉과 회담을 위하여 평양.
She's probably one of the few news presenters in the world where you just need to hear the voice and you know exactly what country you're going to, right? How you doing, Scotty Lopez?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, and another weekend is upon us, and yeah, the rumors that are flying around today, pretty interesting. My little brother popped his head out of the bathroom. He was about to take a shower. He's like, "Hey, they're saying that Kim Jong-un died." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "There's rumors flying around." And so I've been kind of following that. Very, very, very interesting. And who knows?
Who knows? Especially in the internet age, right? Because we've got Spooky Andy here as well. And Andy,
yeah,
I don't know what criteria has to be met before you're officially passed away anymore. Because everyone dies at least 5 times. If you've got any kind of fame, any kind of celebrity about you, you've been there. I mean, how many times have people died? You've read it and then you realise, oh, another hoax. But this feels a little bitty different. But before we get there, Andy, how you doing, man? You came on with me and Jimmy last night. You're back again today. Have you been home? Do you live with these cars? Is this the bunker, man?
This is the I don't want to piss my wife off hangout. Yeah.
Yeah. So by now, could I speculate then? And do you suffer from shoeitis like I do? If you're a bad guy, you get stuff launched at you.
No, not at all.
Oh, see, it's not normal then. See, Scott, it definitely isn't normal what I have to go through here.
She knows I'll throw it back. So
yeah, see, now that's a man's man right there. Oh, dang right.
No, we're on the same level as far as, you know, respect for one another, and we love each other a little too much, I think, because we fight, and 5 minutes later we're like, oh, and then we're done. So.
I find there's something unnatural about these couples that are like 100% of the time all lovey-dovey and they say they never argue. And when you care about somebody that much, you're going to rub each other up the wrong way from time to time, and you'll have that explosive kind of argument. But like you say, 5 minutes later, it's all done and dusted. Nobody gets hurt, and you get back to it.
If you hang on to that, then it's not good. That's not going to be good.
No. And talking of not good, right? I was came online today. I thought, right, what am I going to get into with the guys? Twitter. That's one of the pages that opens up when I come to the internet, and wow, it was trending, boys. It was trending big time. Kim Jong-un dead. Now, you might be wondering why the camera at the bottom is empty, folks. It's not that I have just decided to cut Joe out. We're awaiting his arrival. So hopefully, I think he's starting to become a bit of a Popeye. He turns up a bit late. You know, he wants that grand entrance.
He's trying to
Emulate
he's
his
trying to
hero.
run up the poopster, I think. Yeah. Okay.
I think so. So yeah, it's all over here. Now, I don't know if it's true, but the rumors are that it's some kind of procedure, some operation. Something went wrong. Some Chinese squad of ninja doctors were flown into the country. I don't know, dude. All I will say is, right, if that is the truth and somebody made a boo-boo operating on Kim Jong-un, I hope they have got a really quick and efficient way out of the country. That's all I would say. Don't
What if
fancy
it
being that
wasn't an
guy.
accident?
We live in a world where everything's a conspiracy, right? So I don't know, that's the kind of official line that we're getting. We've got a headline over here. Is Kim Jong-un gone? Rumors circulate as Chinese doctors. They're the ninja doctors I was talking about. I don't know if Ben Fulford sent them or the Red Dragons. I'll need to check up on that. But they were sent in anyway into North Korea. And this comes from the Metro. Pulitzer Prizes every year at the Metro. Very reliable source. It says North Korean dictator. How dare they?
How dare you?
Hey, listen. One man's dictator is another man's Donald Trump. Kim Jong-un has either died or is in a vegetative state following botched heart surgery. Journalists in the region have claimed. So, was it botched or was it a hit?
Do you want to hear my speculation on this?
Of course. We must.
I don't believe it was a botched surgery. I believe Mr. Kimmy Boy caught a case of the Rona.
Oh, you think he got the... You think he got that? You think so?
Don't say it.
You think that's what's happened here?
Yeah, I think he got the coof.
Did he not
I think-
exercise very safe social distancing practices? Is this what we're learning here today?
I think he got a case of the Rona, and I honestly believe that, well, you know, as we see, China wasn't very forthcoming about numbers and whatever coming out of their country. Let's just say China likes to fib a lot and cover things up. And I believe if you could take that tenfold and apply that to North Korea, because they are the most isolated, pretty much country on the planet as far as information.
Misunderstood country on the planet, Scott.
Yeah, I guess you could say so. Let's just say there's not a lot of information flow and just a tad of propaganda, just a little bit of propaganda.
Yeah, they do tend to play in that waters. Yeah.
So when when they put out, oh, we only have like one case of the Rona in North Korea, does anybody really believe that? Really? No. My personal opinion on it is that I think the Rona has been spreading and decimating North Korea. Like, we're never going to know how many people actually
Dennis
died
Rodman will tell
country.
us. Dennis Rodman will be the first over there, dude.
He probably
need-
brought there.
we need to send Rodman over to confirm. We need confirmation, Kev.
Well, you know, before we get Andy's thoughts on this, and we'll explore it deeper, Scott, right? Because we'll need to see what the implications are. I do want to say, really, really cool hat. I don't know if that's the 2 meters that's suggested over here, but I don't know, would that guy tell Kim if he was standing too close to him? I don't think I would. And yeah, there he is, cracking hairdo. So Andy, let me come to you then. What's your thoughts on this? Is it, you've got the full spectrum here, right? Because there could be absolutely nothing wrong to who knows what's going on, right? So what do you think's happening, man?
Well, I mean, he is the supreme leader, so I mean,
He
I
is.
thought he was God or something. The guy doesn't even poop or pee.
Does he not like play golf? Does he not like complete 18 round like holes of golf in like 20 shots as well? The guy's like a
And
Superman,
I
dude.
think he invented the question mark also,
Ah,
and he invented bread also.
yeah, he's a bit of a guy. He's a character. I'll give him that. But here's the thing, right? And I often say this. Listen, it's tongue in cheek, okay? But think about it. We base most of what we know about Kim Jong-un on what? What we've been told by who? The media?
Him.
Well, the media, mainly. You know, how much do we get from North Korea? So that's why I tongue-in-cheek say I think they're the most misunderstood country on the planet, Scott. Yes, I think they get a rough deal. Yeah, nice, good night out in Pyongyang, I've heard.
Yeah, well, I mean,
If you're
I
Dennis
know you're
Rodman.
ready. I know you've been planning your vacation to the to Pyongyang
Yeah.
for quite a while, Kev, and so
I just want, Scott, nothing tickles my fancy more than sitting there, clapping on demand. And I mean, I'm the right height. I'll fit in with the wee buggers. And all those rockets, dude. I mean, come on, man. Everyone wants to see a rocket parade every 10 days, right?
yeah. I mean, so okay. Regardless of how he meets his demise, if he has met his demise or not, whether he's in a vegetative state or already gone. Here's the interesting question: what happens now? Like, this is a super dicey situation because he has no children. There's no like heirs to the throne, as far as I know.
It's the chick,
Other than
dude. It's the chick. His sister,
yeah, I was gonna say,
Yep, his sister gets it, dude. Oh.
but are they going to really like allow that? I mean, I don't want to sound all super woke here, but it is kind of
their military
kind
take over the country and become completely military run, like overnight.
yeah.
He took out his brother, didn't he? Took out his brother, but
yeah,
it depends whether the military would probably back her. I don't know what their kind of culture's like there with a woman taking over, but I would imagine even if there's like a 2-month-old boy in the family, he'll probably be made supreme leader, just on grounds of his DNA.
Yep.
And who knows? Or are we going to see some kind of a power struggle, a la Civil War kind of situation go on?
Well, that's what it says here. And it says, if his death, well, it says his death has been reported by several media outlets in China and Japan following concerns over his health. And early reports have indicated that the North Korean dictator died following complications from heart surgery he had earlier in the month. Now, if the reports of this are correct, the news will spell turmoil for the secretive nation, a senior South Korean military source said. And the source said it was South Korean Operations Chief, Lieutenant General Chun In-bum, told Military Times, quote, "It's bad news for everyone. It could lead to chaos, human suffering, and instability." And retired Special Forces Colonel David Maxwell also told the Military Times a military response may be necessary by the US and South Korea in the event of unrest in the country. He claimed tensions between the North and the West could intensify if it is true.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. Okay. You probably have a lot of his generals that are probably a little power hungry, like wanting to swoop in and, be the head honcho now, take control of the party there. And then what are the mindset of some of these guys? Are they old hardliners that, maybe were not so keen on Kim kind of opening up a little bit to the US? He met with Trump, he started kind of working, there was a little bit of dialogue that was starting to occur. you know that there's
So much
probably
so,
a
Scott,
segment-
so much so that he's even got like a picture of him on his wall there. See that? See?
very, very, very nice artistic rendition. I must say, very, very nice indeed. But really, though, I mean, you got to think. You know that there's probably a lot of old school hardliners that are still part of that system that probably weren't so happy with Kim doing that. And, you know, what if it's one of these guys that end up taking over or deciding that they're going to kind of swoop in and do a little military coup or whatever? How does that change the dynamic of our relationship with North Korea then, right? If you get like one of these really hardcore guys that are like, nope, we ain't talking to anybody, and yeah, we're gonna just fire up the old nuclear weapons program. We're gonna fire missiles. We're gonna go all out, you know, because in the end, these guys, they worship his grandfather, the original Kim. You know, he's looked at as a deity, like a god, you know, and then these are just his progeny that have taken.
Would he be like the OG Un?
Yeah, he's the OG Un. Yeah, exactly. And their allegiance, you know, through the brainwashing and stuff in that country, their allegiance is to him, to the OG Un, to Granddaddy Un, and to carry on his vision of whatever, their little communist vision for that country. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Or do we see like elements of the population that may have been laying dormant, looking at this as the time to rebel? You know what I mean? Because, you know, there is a large segment of that population that is getting, I guess, what you would call counter propaganda. You know, there's a lot of signals and radio from South Korea being blasted into North Korea, you know, telling them, hey, this is what life is really like, you know, out here outside of your country, you know, and there are people there who realize that they are under a totalitarian regime, but you can't really speak up or do anything about it until you see that there's some kind of a weakness, you know, there's some kind of a time when you can make your move, you know. So I don't know. I really do think that, you know, this could be a pretty big deal if it turns out to be true, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, is it going to be just this smooth transition, or is there going to be a lot of chaos or potential civil?
Dude, I'm telling you, supermarkets right now are preparing for a run on toilet paper in the morning. I'm telling you, people are going to be flocking to Pyongyang Walmart. They're going to be filling up their little trolleys full of toilet paper, and they'll be getting ready just in case they have to cry on demand. Remember that weirdness the last time when his dad passed away? All the kind of wailing on demand. You know, if you don't cry loud enough, you're away to the camp kind of thing.
It'll probably be just as bad, if not worse now, right?
We moan about a bit of social distancing, right? Hey, whoa, we don't know how easy we've got it, eh? Well, I suppose I do have to come out my house a couple of times at 8 o'clock a week and clap for the NHS. That is kind of North Korean getting, I suppose. I don't know. Supposed to be. Who knows? Who knows? We'll keep an eye on it. We've got our finger on the pulse here. If we have any listeners out there in that neck of the woods, and it's probably the one place in the world where I can confidently say we don't. But
and I will say, you know, like my thoughts on the Rona spreading through North Korea and killing massive amounts of people
are for another time.
Yeah, but do you really do you really think that the healthcare system in North Korea is that good? Just saying.
I'm barely keeping confidence in my own right now. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
So
if you got the Rona, what do you think your odds are of being saved in a North Korean hospital? Just saying.
Well, as long as you don't have the same doctor as Kim Jong-un, I think you might just be all Right. But listen, there's been a lot of talk of apocalyptic woo in recent times. We've got that thing going on. We've had the plague, right? The plague of locusts as well. You know, we've had that going on. They've been in Africa. They've been reported in China, here, there, everywhere. Well, there's another kind of possible indicator. See if you had like a checklist of things to do. One of the things involves building the third temple, right?
Ooh.
Oh, so what if I was to tell you? You know what's coming. Jerusalem's third temple. Sanhedrin unintentionally paving the way for a second coming. So goes the claim. So the construction of a third holy temple in Jerusalem will precede the second coming of Jesus Christ, a Bible expert has told The Express. Well, I've heard that from pretty much anyone that knows their kind of Bible story. That's one of the markers, right?
Yeah, that this is. I was about to say. I think we've nailed where Joe's at. I think he's down in Jerusalem right now.
I think he might be, dude. Do you think he's like getting to work on scuppering this, or do you think he's working on the unblemished red heifer that needs to go in there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Who made all these rules for the apocalypse, man? It's a heck of a checklist to get done. It's like the bucket list from, is it heaven or hell? I suppose it depends what side you're on, right?
Here's the thing. If there's so many like different markers and rules and all that stuff, and you start seeing them getting checked off, isn't that even more kind of like,
Wouldn't it be quite cool? Do you think it'd be quite cool if like they sent down some kind of like heavenly umpire just to make sure you're doing it right? No, that doesn't qualify. When we said the mark of the beast, we didn't quite mean it like that. And that's no third temple. What are you talking about?
he throws up like a yellow flag on him or whatever.
There you go.
Like, blows the whistle.
Unfortunately, those rules are probably coming from purgatory, not really from heaven or hell.
Yeah, I've got a problem with the whole rewrote by King James thing going on and stuff like that. And, you know, you can't trust something that was told to... How can I put this? It's hard to rely on information that's second or third hand, let alone information that's been edited and changed and translated down the ages. I mean, come on, how accurate is it at that point?
Yeah. Whenever that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, this is the King James version of the Bible. I'm like, what? There's different I figured God's word would be one version, and it's been translated.
This is why we're not on the main channel, Scott. You'd have just triggered about 300 people over on the main channel. I'm the same as you did. I'm exactly the same. I don't think when you get to the pearly gates, they're going to give you like a pop quiz. I don't think they're going to ask you like 10 questions. If you can't answer them, you don't get in. I hope it's not like that. And if it is, well, I don't want it in there anyway.
Not to mention all the Mandela effects that have happened with the Bible.
Exactly.
Like how do we know what's what anymore, really,
I am talking to Mandela effects. I was messaging back and forth with Nancy. She's been on with us before with Popeye and Scott. And she's a huge Philip K. Dick fan, like huge, uber, big time, right? And that speech that we played last week, that Freaky Friday, that one, Scott, that lives in the memory, right? She's blown away. Never, ever, ever had she heard of anything been done by Philip K. Dick back in 1977, where he's like talking about multiple worlds and experiencing different timelines. So that, Kev, it's almost like that's a Mandela effect. And I tell you what, it's almost as if now was the time for that to be seen. Maybe it wouldn't have made so much sense 5 years ago or something,
Yeah, it's very interesting. Almost like the whole speech he made describing Mandelas and all of this stuff in itself is a Mandela.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild. It's like Inception. It's a Mandela within a Mandela.
Kind of weird. Did you listen to that show, Andy?
Yeah.
That was pretty deep, huh?
Yeah.
What do you
Very.
make? What do you make of that? I mean, a sci-fi writer that's telling you that one of his books, The Man in the High Castle, which deals with multiple realities, one of which the story's mainly set in a world where the bad guys won World War II. They've got the east half of America, the Japanese have the west half. And then throughout the story, you realise that there's multiple worlds. And to hear him then saying that it was only later on he realised that wasn't like fiction, it was more from repressed memories of this other worlds he had been to. That there, dude, is like mind melting.
Well, I meant like you could view it as you can take him at his word for it, but you could also view it as an over embellishment mixed with somewhat of some truth, because it's like the whole thing. I'd never heard about those boats and the hooligan guys on the East Coast fighting Nazis. I never heard any of that, dude. And like, I was really, really into my history with World War II, and
I'd never heard of
that
Black
was
Tom
new.
Island, dude. I've never heard of a German attack in 1916 on the
Same.
US. What's that all about?
Same. I've never heard of it. And it's like, so maybe some of it was over embellishment. Maybe it's all true. Like, we'll never know, because, you know, that was then, this is now. And all we have to go with is one man's claims and a story.
I tell you, it takes kahunas the size of a gorilla's to sit there in 1977, people with bell bottoms on, you know, and to start off your speech by saying, by the way, what I'm about to tell you, I don't even know if it's real. Do you know what I'm saying? I tell you, man.
Yeah.
Mind blowing, just mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's only been viewed about 1,000, 2,000 times on YouTube. What's that all about?
It's getting repressed, you know. I meant like any type of weird information like that won't get viewed unless it's brought to the forefront by a bigger organization. And usually most of that kind of stuff gets pretty buried, mainly because it's not something everyone's really looking for until they find it. And then once someone big enough finds it, it might bring it forth, you know.
Well, I'm looking forward to working with Chris, the quantum businessman. He's got to come on once a month, but I really when you think about the significance of, like, listen, the bears and things like that, and you can argue over people's memories of lines in movies, but guys, when you're having like historic events changing the reasons that countries got into wars, and that goes beyond Bernstein. It's like,
Yeah.
huge. The ramification, I mean, the ripple effect from that, Scott. You've got people who have been up the Empire, is it the Statue of Liberty, right? They've been in the torch. But now you're told, well, you can never get into the torch because that explosion.
See, I'll tell you right now, that's BS. Because I remember going there when I was 6 with my mom and dad.
And there's many people like that.
You could pay to go up. So it's like, there's no way that it's never, like, I remember going. It's a memory I remember having. That was like 86.
I'm going to dig that up for people just in case people haven't seen it. But, yeah, Scott, your thoughts on that one again, man?
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole Mandela effect thing, it really started getting kind of crazy for me whenever, like, big historical stuff like that started becoming Mandela effects, and also like a lot of the biblical Mandela effects as well. Like the latest one I heard, actually, because my mom is real interested in the Mandela effect stuff. There's a channel on YouTube that actually like documents these things. The latest biblical one I heard is actually a pretty significant one, and it's involving the Book of Revelations, and you know the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Apparently, there was never a horseman of pestilence. It is a horseman of conquest.
What?
Now, I've said it on because I do a show with Bill, and he'll be on tomorrow. But I've said it to that audience, I'll say it again here. I'm predicting a Mandela to happen to the part of the Bible that deals with the mark of the beast, where it eventually tells people that it's good to take this mark. And if that doesn't happen, then the Pope's going to come out and say, well, see, the Bible's hurting people because, you need, this is putting people off getting a treatment, a vaccine or whatever. So I'm keeping my eye on that. But the one Bill brought to the table as well was Moses doesn't go up the mountain himself anymore now. He goes up with another cat. Yeah. It's got his face.
I got a soundboard clip for that.
I'm telling you, that's the latest one though. That's the latest one. Bill Bean's demented with him. I feel sorry for Bill because it's torturing him. I can see what it's doing to him, but it's just weird. Changing Bible, changing historic events, and well, take a listen to this one.
Number 3. The Black Tom Explosion. I consider myself a massive history buff who's addicted to documentaries and historical accounts of previous events and wars. I can't get enough of this stuff. So the most troubling Mandela effect to me is what is considered the first terrorist attack in America. No, it wasn't Pearl Harbor. No, it wasn't 9/11. It was a
No, it definitely was Pearl Harbor. Just don't lie.
German attack on American soil all the way back in 1916. Sound familiar? It doesn't to me. The setting is July 30th, 1916 in Jersey City, New Jersey, on Black Tom Island. Black Tom Island was a major ammunition and small arms depot providing arms to allies during World War I. 2 German agents working there posing as guards set off small fires all over the island, eventually setting off millions of pounds of explosives. This is called the Black Tom Explosion. Now, the strange part about this Mandela effect is because it is so big and so important, it causes massive ramifications throughout time. So it not only changes this one point in history, but it changes multiple things, and we're going to get into that as we go on. The first of which is now we're told that this is the turning point as to why the US joined World War I. But I was always told it was because of the sinking of the Lusitania. So it feels
Right. Andy, don't care. I'm not doubting what this guy's saying. I know, I've gone and checked it. Black Tom Island, it's apparently a thing. But the Lusitania was absolutely the reason why the US got involved. I've got no idea where this Black Tom Island thing ever came from, when it first appeared, when people first started talking about this, because I've not met anyone that said to me, okay, yeah, the big Black Tom Island explosion, you didn't know about that? I've not met anyone that said that to me yet. So there's something really big about this one. I don't know why. I get a gut feeling that there's huge implications to it, and I've got no clue what's going on.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all. And, I was at one point in time pretty engulfed in what I was reading and stuff that I would look up, and I never heard of this ever until recently. This has to be a timeline that we have converged with where something like this did happen. And I don't remember this. I do not remember it. Like I can't even put into words how baffling it is to hear about this stuff after spending, so much time reading and researching and, learning all this stuff. And now there's this extra that's just came out of the, out of the woods. Now we have this going on, and it's like, oh, well, all right. What am I supposed to say? What are we supposed to say as a whole? Like,
Well, Scott, I'll pass it to you because I know you're wanting to get in here, but I've noticed something, and people used to joke about it. It's like the History Channel was the bad guys from World War II channel, right? It's always showing you their side of things from World War II, and the more you watch it now, the more and more battles they seem to win. And don't take my word for it, just go and watch the things. It used to be them getting trounced, us handing their assholes to them over in Europe, kicking them backwards. Not so much anymore. Not so much. And then you got that whole hooligan navy over in the US. And I tell you,
Yeah.
people haven't watched The
it's
Man in the
very
High
strange.
Castle yet, Scott. You have to watch that program because I think there's so much in that, especially when you're seeing these war-themed changes going on, you know?
Well, it's very interesting, first of all, that you've been referencing The Man in the High Castle just in general regarding this, and then that whole Philip K. Dick thing came to light, and it was like, oh, that I think that just adds a little extra woo to the whole situation, But look, I'm a history buff, big history buff, right? I mean, like, I grew up with my grandfather watching war documentaries and all of that stuff, on History Channel, and even back in the day when a lot of that stuff wasn't even on History Channel, it was like on PBS and Discovery Channel as well, like yeah. So I've not once did I ever hear of this whole Black Tom Island thing, not once, and it was always the sinking of the Lusitania, right? And that's what got us into World War One. So yeah, this one really, this is one of the ones that really kind of like rubbed me like, whoa, what is going on here? It just, I don't know, man. I don't know. And no, I mean, I think that's what you're seeing is like parallel dimensions, like phasing in and out of each other. That's the only thing I can think to describe this. And some people are experiencing one dimension while maybe others are experiencing another. Maybe they didn't phase into one, and some people phased into another. That's why we say that nobody's wrong when they have a Mandela effect, because for one person it could be the way they remember. Like, maybe they do actually remember it that way because maybe they experienced it in that parallel timeline. Maybe to them that may be what their reality was, but for others it might not be. So
Why I always say treat it like a deja vu, Scott. You never laugh at anyone for having a deja vu. You never question it,
don't argue with somebody about a Mandela going, no, that's not the right way. That's not what happened. Well, to them, that might have been what happened. And for you, that might have been what happened. So you're both correct. If you remember it that way, none of you are wrong, because you did experience that, just maybe in a different parallel timeline or dimension or something.
Scott, do you remember when I meant, like, maybe this might make sense to you, because like when I've explained this to people, they're like, well, it's always been like that. Well, so when I was a kid growing up, I was always told like how we were such badasses and we kicked the F out of whatever. And then the more I looked into all of it, and then started actually like learning all the stuff about World War II and stuff, just finding out that like the Russians were really the reason why the war was won, and how many people in Russia died, and it was more Russian based more than American based. And it just seems like that was like everything I was learning, was that the reason why the war was won was mainly because of Russia. And I mean, like, this is, I don't know, man, I'm just going off what I've learned.
Well,
but I mean,
obviously,
like, it's also in America, you're gonna hear the stories about how America was so awesome.
Yeah.
And then if you have a foreign teacher that comes, like my history teacher wasn't from America, he was from Bulgaria, and he told us their side of it. And so maybe it was like their side of it. But then when you look at it online, like you look at all the numbers and the stats, it really does show that like Russia got their asses handed to them, but they're mainly the reason why the war was won against the Russians, or I mean against the Germans, whatever.
I grew up with kind of the same narrative. I mean, because like I said, my grandfather, he was in the Air Force and he was a huge history buff, and he just kind of laid out a lot of the reality of stuff and kind of cut through a lot of the propaganda and BS. You know what I mean? And he always told me, look, the Russians played a major role. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have won, because they were coming in from the east, we were coming in from the west, and we were squeezing, squeezing the Germans from both sides. It was a two front war, and if you didn't have those two fronts, the Germans shouldn't have backstabbed Russia and broke the treaty that they had with them. And the Russians lost a lot of people because they engaged in what I call human wave attacks. They're people. Stalin just kind of saw his people expendable, so he would just send thousands and thousands of people just rushing into battle in a human wave attack. And that's why you saw so many of them die, because they'd get cut down, but there were so many of them that they would just overrun you, human wave attack. So that's kind of how maybe it's just because me and you got a more I guess you could say accurate picture of what the war was really like, as opposed to a lot of the kind of the more glorified version that they kind of teach everybody, that because like you said, what is history? It's his story, and also history is written by the victors. And so of course the US is gonna hey, we won, we're gonna pump up kind of what we did there and make it seem more like it was just us that did it, and kind of downplay a lot of what Russia did, because obviously right after World War II, we weren't so friendly with Russia, so it's tough for us to give credit to them, after the fact.
There's a theory behind that, and it's mainly that Russia as a whole said, you would be nothing without us. You wouldn't have been able to achieve your part without us. And our American army was like, oh yeah, well, and then middle fingers, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what, I heard about this. But I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, there's a particular story that always kind of enthralled me with, World War II. It was the story of this Russian sniper called the Black Death. And that guy had 512 heads, not heads, but a head count of 512, I guess, German soldiers by himself. And he held down him and 3 other dudes, and these other 2 dudes would just run and grab this dude ammo, and he was picking off everyone, I guess, for 3 weeks until he actually finally got shot. But this dude was a badass. I don't know if you can look it up if you have a minute, but dude, it's...
Was that Vasily Zaitsev, or is this a different guy?
I think that's who he was. But they referred to him as the Black Death. It's been a long time ago since I remember all the information about him, but he was just this badass, just made of stone,
Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to show the video just because of the channel, but I think his name's Simo Haya. Is that it?
Might be. Sounds familiar.
Yeah. But I tell you, we were talking, the end of World War II, we often, in fact, 99% of the time, we, and there's nothing wrong with it, we're right, we look at Project Paperclip, Operation Paperclip, and the transfer of the scientific kind of elites, the people that were behind the bad guy machine that was going on. Some went to Russia, some went to America, and we all concentrate on von Braun. I get that. But I think maybe something even more appropriate or more apt to what we're talking about today, guys, is, those pesky bad guys in World War II, they were after high technology, but not new technology, right? They were after like the ancient stuff, the good woo. And I do wonder what the function of the bell was. Die Glocke.
I was just about to say that. I was we were on the same wavelength here, Kev. Because what if that little experiment? What if they fired up the De Glock, and what if that caused the little phasing of dimensions or of parallel timelines? What if that kind of ripped something open or caused some kind of cascading effect? You know, I mean, we're talking about this technology that's speculated that, you know, they're spinning mercury and generating toroidal fields, and
there's a lot of similarities as well to what they do in that Nazi experiment, the Die Glocke.
That's the Fluppenflapper or whatever, Wonder Weapon.
Yeah, when you look at particle accelerators, it's easy to concentrate on CERN, right? Because it's the biggest game in town, but you've got that kind of rotating kind of element to it, the same as the rotating and the mercury and things, the toroidal fields. I don't know, dude. It's like a scaled up, more technological version of Die Glocke.
What if the bad guys? What if the bad guys were like, okay, we're losing. There's no way we can win this unless we phase in a timeline where we do win.
And that you really have to go and watch The Man in the High Castle for us to start making even more sense. But let's see if there's talking on this video. Let's see. Is there?
Experiment called Die Glocke and the Bell. Stories of anti-gravity and time travel.
Right, it's a really shocking soundtrack to that, but I think we get the idea there. I don't know if that is Die Glocke. Did they actually have a video of it?
No, I doubt that is actual footage of Die Glocke.
Quite good.
Maybe
though.
in another timeline. Maybe in another timeline, it's actual footage. Who knows?
Dude, who knows? But that's the idea of it, right? Look at that thing, man. And then you got the whole kind of the ruins. I'd say they're Nordic type ruins around the side. We'd need Max from Germany here, man. He'd probably be able to decipher those things, right?
He'd decode that thing.
Yeah, that's his name, Vasily. So you into a bit of the Glocke? Yeah,
Absolutely.
what do you make of it then, Andy? What's your take on what was going on there, man? I mean, come on. What do you think we're looking at?
Sorry, I did something to my screen and it's totally.
What has he done?
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I don't know what I did to this.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. My screen is all buggered up right now.
What do you think then? What's your take on it when you started looking into this? Because you're a guy that's like techie minded. You've got that kind of science grounding, you know.
When it comes to, you know, high powered energy fields, and you know, there is a thing with spinning mercury at high speeds. If you run it into plasma, you do get some weird effects. Without, you know, doing the said thing myself, I don't, you know, can't say, you know, for certain, but I can tell you right now that if you spin something fast enough, it creates a magnetic field around it. Now, if that metal is being spun fast enough, it's going to create a certain type of magnetic field that is, you know, noticeable. Whether that means that spinning mercury at, you know, a certain RPM does something, I can't say because I've never done it. But I can tell you, mercury is a very
think about
weird...
that, Andy, right? You get counter rotating then, right? You've got two counter rotating and then you got the magnetic fields that produces, right? Now, in my mind, I think of when you hold two like polar magnets against each other, and they almost repel. You can't get them together. I wonder if that's the way that somehow that translates into anti-gravity. It gives you that lift, you know?
I've thought about this, like, you know how you have attraction and repulsion here. So when it comes to something with, you know, magnetics, you know how the Gauss field, that's how you measure magnetics, is in Gauss. So there's a certain amount of Gauss that, you know, magnets, depending on what type of magnets they are, can create. And then you have electromagnets that can create far above what, you know, an earth magnet or something like that can create. Well, if you keep scaling that up, let's just say, you know, the universe having certain types of, you know, magnetism, I mean, there's a level of magnetism that I think that you might be able to create artificially that the universe can't create, you know, like over time wouldn't, you know, with our planetary systems and, you know, the way things are, I don't think it can create the same type of magnetic fields that we can. Like, I mean, just look at CERN. Look at what CERN does, you know? I mean, like, they've talked about how CERN has somehow messed with our magnetic field around the Earth. Then you look at what happens with HARP. HARP's able to raise the stratosphere away from Earth somehow. Like, I don't know. I've never really looked into it. I just have, you know, heard the woo and be like, okay, and then I can just repeat the woo. So it's not my woo. But knowing that these are things that can be done, I'm going to go ahead and, you know, say that I'm pretty sure that they can create a toroidal field around an object with liquid metal. I'm sure that there's a way to do it. I meant, like, when you look into all the, you know, the free energy devices and stuff like that that people have been trying to make for forever, I guarantee you'll never hear about the one that actually works, because it'll get the kibosh before it ever becomes an actual thing. You know, like, if we were able to figure out a way to spin mercury at a certain amount of speed to where it might produce, let's say, a magnetic field that can drive a motor and then power your home,
we're gonna see.
You're not going to hear about that.
We're gonna see what Mercury looks like here by the looks of it. Is there any volume to it? No. He's gonna create some kind of magnetic field with it.
Yeah, these are the experiments that I've watched where you apply a positive and negative charge to mercury and it causes it to rotate. So that's all you have to do. And if the Germans, from what I understand, they may have dedicated an entire power plant to powering the Glock. And so if you're pushing that much electrical energy into spinning a very small amount of
look at that.
Yeah, see, it just
look how
rotates.
simple that is.
Yeah.
Now
see the rotation.
Before we go any further, let's just think about this. What he's showing you is something easily creatable. Like, anyone could make that thing, right? Well,
now it's going the other way. Look.
Let's just say you had something like a paddle that was in the stream of that thing that was rotating a generator. You would then have a source of constant energy.
Yep.
Now, if you were able to run that thing on itself, let's just say loop it back, and I meant, like, this, some of the stuff I kind of know a lot about, you would be able to create an energy source that would be infinite. And I mean, like, I'm just telling you from like talking to my father-in-law that worked at National Renewable Energies Laboratory for like 20 years. He's told me some stories about some of this stuff, and he's like, it won't come to fruition until XYZ happens, and it probably won't happen because, you know, you can't put a way to monetize those type of things. There's no point. You could sell someone a free energy device for $100 million. That'd be the only one that gets sold, unless someone else that has $100 million wants to buy that same device, you know. But like, not everyone has $100 million. So
I bet you
it
it's
might
like
take-
Nikola Tesla could see us talking about this right now and looking at us, he'd be like, you kidding me on? You guys are still going down that whole Edison road. You aren't working with this kind of stuff yet. Come on.
he'd be pissed. And you know what? He'd be rightly pissed for feeling that way, because it's more the same. Like we were talking yesterday, that guy had his ass handed to him by a bunch of trolley elites that just took advantage of the guy, man. Like, it's not right.
No. Big time.
Yeah, and so, you know, you were talking about, Kev, anti-gravity, right? And I think this ties into like the electric universe theory, right? And what exactly is gravity? You know, I know we always kind of bust each other's balls about gravity. You know, I like to joke around with you about how you don't believe in gravity, but you do. Look, it's a phenomenon, and gravity.
Yeah.
Merely,
I just don't think
yeah,
we
it's a
understand it fully, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly. It's a phenomenon, and gravity is just the word we've put on it. It's a force that pulls us towards a central point, and I believe. Look, if we're going the electric universe route here, then gravity is essentially some kind of electromagnetic pull. You know, it's a, you know, you have a positive pull, a negative pull, and it's obviously one of these pulls.
Yeah.
Right. So if you generate an opposing or an opposite, or actually, if you generate the same, right? Because if you try to put two
Oh no, he
two
turned his
positives
camera off. He
together.
punked you, man. He punked you. He punked you, Scott. He punked you, man. Okay, so we're gonna have to put up with Scotty headroom for a little moment. It looks like I've been shrunk, and I've like, oh wow, man, that's pretty trippy, dude.
Joe turns me into Nephilim, and then Andy turns me into
I like
Nephilim.
how Andy's mind works, dude. He's on the same kind of techie, way out kind of thinking that we're on. I feel the vibe, man.
There, let me blip my Nephilim self out of existence for a second. Boom. There we go.
Okay,
We're good.
Okay, there we go. Now it looks good, Scott. Now,
Yes.
now I just look like I'm talking to myself. It's okay. Good.
It's no. Hey, as long as the Matrix code is raining down, you know I'm
Yeah,
here.
exactly, Scott. As long as I'm still on the timeline with Black Tom Island, that's where I started this show. As long as I finish there, I'll be happy, dude.
And I like how Joe is just kind of joining us in spirit.
Joe's going to be here tomorrow. He messaged me. He is absolutely whacked. So, yeah, he's going to come along tomorrow. And, folks, remember to subscribe to the channel. There you go, Scott. He's back now. He's unnephilim'd you.
I couldn't hold it anymore, dude. I had to go.
This is turning into a rather deep conversation like last night. That I'm liking this. I'm gonna go and get a coffee on, right? So I'll be 2 secs.
No, but I'm you know, I guess if you could generate enough of a electromagnetic field that I guess you could say repels itself from whatever gravity is, then yeah, you can have anti-gravity. You know, you just have to generate enough energy into a concentrated location, and you could do something like that. So yeah, the whole spinning mercury thing and them doing that stuff with the bell, I think that there was a lot to that. And
there's a theory I've heard before. I don't know what kind of weight it holds, but do you know what I can't speak apparently. A toroidal donut looks like?
yeah.
Okay, so like if you envision energy being formed in that type of shape, let's say, I wouldn't put it past German engineers, because they love to make stuff complicated. They, as evil as some of these people were, you have to also realize, and believe me, I'm not standing up for what Nazis did, okay? Like, I don't want anyone to myth words with what I'm saying. But if you look at what happens in North Korea, okay, a lot of these people are being held at gunpoint to do things. Now, a lot of these people in Germany were brainwashed. They were told what they're doing is the right thing, and they were told what they were doing was for the greater good. Now, whether or not they believed it truly, heartfully or not, who knows? But a lot of these people were being held against their will to do things for their country to better their situation and the outcome of a war. And it's real easy for people to get wrapped up and proud when they're being told nonstop what they're doing is the right thing, when they're also being brainwashed. It doesn't make it right, okay? Believe me, I am not standing up for these people, okay? Like, what happened was awful. The outcome obviously is also not great. And, as a whole, all of it was bad. That being said, there was a lot of achievements that were made, but at the detriment of humanity. So,
Oh, no doubt.
We can use what they've done now, because a lot of that stuff has, been taken from World War II Nazi era, scientists. I mean, look at our rocket program with Werner von Braun and all that stuff. Like, all that stuff was achieved on the back of travesty. And, I really don't think that people, associate the travesty that had happened with some of the, good that came out of it. But honestly, if we really, really break it down, none of it was really good. We didn't need nuclear bombs. We didn't need, a rocket program at the time, because their payloads needed to be delivered via that, whatever. Well, but at the same time, a lot of technology did come forth from that Second World War on the back of travesty.
No doubt. I mean, as horrific as it was, and the cost to, for a lot of that took place, you have to respect a lot of the scientific achievements that they accomplished, during that time. And what was the full extent of what they figured out and what they did, I don't think we'll ever know. I mean, and of course, that's part of the main reason why we had Operation Paperclip, right? We wanted to bring the best and brightest minds from there over to us. And, Russia had their own version of Operation Paperclip, where they had German scientists and everything from World War II, working on things over there. So, obviously they were achieving a lot of scientific breakthroughs that everybody else wanted their hands on. And like you said, it came at a cost. That it was horrific, the things that they did in order to, do a lot of this stuff. I mean, look at the medical, the stuff that they did medically, right? You had Joseph Mengele, doing horrific experiments, but there were a lot of things that were actually kind of gleaned from that, as horrific as it was, and so yeah, I mean, it just, they were working on nuclear. Oh, go ahead.
No, I
Go.
was going to say, just to add to that, though, Scott, you think of medicine today, some of the gruesome things, away from even like Mengele, some of the stuff that we would rather not know about when they were learning how to operate and things, I tell you, the things they must have done then to learn where we are now. Whoa.
Yeah, you're not going to hear the true horror stories of what actually happened. You can only speculate on, well, how did they figure this out, and go from there. And your mind can pretty much figure out exactly what they had to do to accomplish those feats. And, like I said, this isn't, us saying, it's a good thing they did that, because it is not. It's, a travesty, but we learn and move on and grow from it. Yeah. And now that we know that, we don't need to know that. You know what I mean? They figure that out, which makes them the a-holes. So, like,
here's
figure that out.
Here's the question. Like, so then it gets into the whole kind of ethical debate, right? Like, so how far are people willing to go in order to achieve scientific knowledge, right? And so we have this sort of code of ethics, supposedly, now, right, where you're not allowed to do X, Y, Z because that's bad, that's a horrific thing. And even if it was to lead to some kind of a scientific breakthrough or whatever, we're not going to do that, right? But then you got countries like China where their ethical code is, they don't really have ethics, right? And so
it's that gun to the head theory. If you're being told you do this or I'll kill you, you're going to act in self-preservation to do what you're told to make it through the next day, unless you're, on a different path and say, you know what? I don't think so. Go ahead and shoot me, because I'm not going to participate. And there's a lot of things in life I can guarantee you that I would probably be like that with. If my government said, if you don't turn your neighbors in for hanging out too close to one another, I'd tell them to go F themselves in a heartbeat. And if they said, well, you'll go to jail if you don't tell me, I'll be like, put the handcuffs on then, because you're about to have a wild ride there, buckaroo, because I'm armed to the teeth and I will fight you tooth and nail to defend, my sovereignty and humanity. Like, that's just kind of how some of us are. Some people will play sheep, though, and go about doing what they can to, better themselves and their family. And they think that they'll be enacting, well, this is helping us preserve the family unit. But in all actuality, the more people go along with the bad to help themselves, they're no different than the people that are doing the bad. If you go along, it's like this: if you went along with the Nazis, you're no different than the Nazis. You're acting in self-preservation, which is understandable, but at the same time, you're not fighting back against the bad in the world. So it's up to us, the people, individuals, enough of us get together and say, I'm done. F you. If we all act in that same manner, the crap stops tomorrow. If we all stood up at one point in time, or all at the same time, or enough of us over a period of time, and said, I'm not paying taxes anymore. All you do with our taxes is waste the money. All you do with the tax money is spend it on crap and pay ass hats that shouldn't have it, and give money to countries that don't need it and waste it. and you don't help people that do need it, but then you go attack brown people. Like, it's not all right. You know, if we all stood up and said, no, you're going to do what we say now, because this is the money that we make. You're taking a part of it and using it for crap that shouldn't be used for. I mean, like, dude, I can get real passionately involved in this speech or this line of dialogue that I'm having right now, because I really think all taxation is theft. But, you know, it's because I feel that way about where my money's being spent. I feel that way if someone's telling me I need to do something or else. I always fight back, because I have a problem with authority and I have a problem with people telling me what to do, because I have these two middle fingers in my hands that I like to show everyone as much as possible. I won't do it on stream, but believe me, like, I would just show them these two all the time. Anytime someone tries to act authoritarian around me, I'd rather die than help someone that doesn't deserve it. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm off in the weeds, dudes. Sorry.
Andy's on one, man. He's on one. I'm telling you, dude.
I can't help it, dude.
Well, you were talking about taking on authorities there, and it made me think of our dumb criminal for the day, guys. And this one, it's not Florida, right? Not Florida, surprisingly enough. But Mustang driver said he didn't stop because he thought that the troopers wanted a race. That should really, I really need the wah, wah, wah.
Well, Kev, even though it's not a Florida man story, this is what I consider a Mustang driver story.
All right, so now explain, Scott. Is this a thing? Is it like Florida man?
Yeah, it's worse.
Andy would know about this too. He's a car guy. He knows the whole myth and lore around Mustang drivers. But in a nutshell, let's just say that Mustang drivers are
they're a special breed.
A very special breed of individuals who think that they're Superman when they buy a Mustang, and let's just say they're not very skilled on knowing how to control a high horsepower vehicle. Let's just put it that way.
Even the ones that are high horsepower, though, Scotty. Not even. It's just anything that's rear wheel drive. If they came from having a Honda Civic and they get a V6 Mustang, they'll think that thing's the fastest thing on the planet, and then they will literally, because it's a rear wheel drive car, loop it and run into shit. They
tend to suffer from Superman syndrome when they get behind the wheel of a Mustang.
Yep.
And
let's see what this Mustang genius has been up to then. And I think, you know, I'm gonna take a note of this. I'm gonna keep an eye open now. Not that I'll need to, because these stories will now start appearing in my life anyway. So
yes, keep an eye on it. Kev.
Yeah, a Minnesota man was arrested last night in Elkhart County after officials said he led Indiana State Police on a high-speed pursuit because he thought they wanted to race. So according to a press release, the 25-year-old Musab Al-Hussein, who knows, was clocked by troopers going 120 miles an hour in a 70-mile-per-hour zone. The red Mustang was chased for 25 miles, with troopers throwing stop sticks twice before the pursuit ended. At what point do you kind of even try to have the audacity to say, oh, I thought we were racing?
That makes me think that at some point in time, a reporter was like, what in the Alabama hillbilly Jeff Rowe street racing crap is going on here, and started throwing flares at the dude. And he was like, oh man, they want to race. Let's get it on, Jeff Rowe. And just kept on going, because once you're high on meth, you're high on meth. That's what that is. That dude was high as a kite. You know he was.
Here's my take on it. Here's my interesting take on it. Judging from his name, I'm wondering if he was from Saudi Arabia.
What was his
Yeah, he
name?
might have been doing some drifting, man. He might have thought it was drift time.
His name was Musab
Al Hussein.
Al
He
Hussein.
could have been African American converted though, if that's the case.
It could have
That's
been,
true.
but a,
Okay,
Saudi, but a Saudi street drifter is a really funnier way to approach this story.
Yo, there is a really crazy scene in Saudi Arabia and in Qatar for drifting, and
Yeah.
this is coming from me because I am a drifter. I have my pro license, dudes. Like,
Oh yeah, we've watched that on the stream before, man. That's some crazy ass stuff going on. Well, in fact, we will go and look at that in a moment. We will. We need to.
But here's my thing. Like, maybe he really did legit think the police wanted to race him, because
That's what happens. Yeah.
I've seen examples in Saudi Arabia where the cops roll up with a Lambo and start wanting to, play with some of these drifter guys out there. So if he just came from Saudi Arabia, maybe he was just thinking, oh, maybe they do want to race, I mean,
that's the ghetto stuff. You're looking at the ghetto stuff on the highway. That actually, you know what?
Dude.
That's good content, dude. Those dudes are insane.
Yeah.
That's
Hang
what
on,
I'm saying.
wait a minute. We've got an advert. Pesky adverts.
Maybe he just came from Saudi Arabia, thought he was going to play some of this little action, in his new American Mustang, and the police flipped the
That's
sirens
normal
on.
speed. I thought that was still speeded up. Dang, dude.
Dude, they're out of control. And those are front-wheel drive cars they're doing that in, by the way.
Whoa. No with the bus there, man. Whoa.
They don't care at all. And they'll go spinning them like 180 degrees, like 360, 540, 720s. Like, they're out of control.
Whoa, you
And
wouldn't be
here's the
hanging out the side of that.
Yeah, look, hanging out the window, man.
Have you ever seen the one where they change the wheels off of the car? They get like it's a Nissan. I can't remember the name of what kind of Nissan it is, but it's a Nissan something, and it has like a 2J in them. They build these cars up. It's just crazy, and they'll get these Nissan. It's a Nissan Patrol. They'll put a Nissan Patrol on its side wheels, and then some dude in a dress will get out, because they wear that, the Arab, dress that keeps them nice and cool, whatever. Dude's getting out of the car, changes the wheel from the front to the back, puts the car back down on the all four wheels. Like, this is something they've actually done. It is like mind blowing. Like, how many people have died on a highway trying to figure out how to do this?
I've let's just say back in the day, on some pretty shady sites, I saw a lot of video of these Saudi drifters, let's just say, plowing into crowds, and it was not very pretty.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
So,
Okay, so we're going from like dumb criminal to, I don't know what to make of this criminal yet. I don't know if it's dumb cops. I don't know if it's like what's going on here, but I think the headline does most of the talking. It says here, for Niagara police, it was nuts to believe that the lump in a man's nether regions wasn't drugs. So I've not read this, right? So straight off the bat, this guy's been searched, hasn't he? He's been searched, and they've gone, whoa, hang on, get the drugs out your pocket. And he stood there laughing, and he stood there going, no, boys, no.
You pulled a John Holmes switcheroo on him.
Is that what we're thinking? Or are we thinking he tried to say it was his Johnson, and really it was it was the other junk?
I guess we'll find out.
What are
It's
we
a
saying?
mystery.
Well, let's ask the audience as well. What do you think's going to happen here, audience? Do you think it's going to be is he too much junk for the trunk, or is he all talk? Can't back it up. One for too much junk for his trunk. Yeah. One for he's packing heat. Yeah. Exactly. As Tiger Woods calls it, the big wood. Yeah. Indeedy. Come on, ones or twos. How long is this delay? YouTube, sort this out. This really spoils my spot quizzes that we have on here. We should have some music on. We should have the Love Boat music on, man. I should have had it queued up. Love Boat. Scotty, I actually burst into the Love Boat on a KBS on TFR one night. I just shoved it on and turned the volume up and walked away, man. I'd had enough. Yeah. I literally had enough. I'm like, you know what? Love Boat it. Number 2, Algo at least is playing the game. Thank you, Algo. Algo thinks he's all talk. He can't back it up. I think we're just going to have to find out. So then let's see. So while the man maintained the large hardened lump in his groin were his testicles, Niagara police had their suspicions. Considering the size, if those were his testicles, he'd have been taken to the hospital. Says Judge David Wolf, referring to what police noted following the arrest of Tyrone Hazel in the fall of 2018. Now, in order to rule out the possibility that Hazel was packing a weapon or narcotics in his crotch, Niagara Regional Police conducted a strip search. It's wah, and discovered a large quantity of fentanyl. Some really bad stuff and even more bad stuff in the man's underwear. Nice try. I'm just trying to...
It really would have been really funny if they strip searched him and they're like, wow, well, we're impressed, sir. Good for you.
Yeah.
He'd be like, yeah,
his name was Ron Jeremy. Yeah. Signs out Ron Jeremy. I'm out of here, boys.
Yes. I'm just impressed he managed to shove 12 grand worth in his underwear, man. That's a...
That means he probably wasn't packing very much human heat at all.
Yeah.
He had a lot of extra room down there, I guess.
It would have seemed so. Can you imagine being a cop, though? I mean, dang, dude. Imagine, like, having to search people and, like, you know where you're going. You know where you're having to go. It's not good. It's not big. It's not clever. Oh, Shimoli. There's a thankless task, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Scott's
For every
thinking
bit
that.
of crap that police officers do that's bad, you got to think about some of the crap that they have to do to keep the streets actually clean. And I don't know, man. I have a couple friends that are police officers, and they tell me stories, man, and I'm like, F that.
Exactly.
Like, there's no way.
I mean, yeah. There are things that they do that, man, I don't know. I don't think I would. I mean, some of the stuff they have to worry about, like, searching somebody and worrying about getting stuck with a needle, that's one of the things that really, really, like, that would spook me about doing that job,
Right.
So
I'll tell you what then, right? Doing that job, here's something that ties in with it. It's a good bit of woo, right? And I want to get your guys' take on this as well. But what policemen, more so fire, kind of fire people, do you call them now that we're woke? They can't be firemen, Fire personnel.
Firefighters.
That's the one. I was looking for the right term, dude.
Or EMS.
Okay then. How about paramedics over here? Tomatoes. That's all semantics, But spontaneous combustion. Oh, right.
this is very interesting.
Yeah, well, what if I was to tell you we've got our favorite website, Scott, and it's got a story not just about spontaneous combustion, survivors of it.
I've actually watched a show.
His face, he's like, what?
I watched a show last year about this guy who has survived multiple spontaneous human combustion incidents.
So
Not
this
just
guy's,
Change his diet if he had this issue.
he must be like some kind of human torch.
Holy crap.
they actually were doing, like, really, really legit hardcore scientific research into spontaneous human combustion, and what may be causing it. And they think they may have a possible explanation, actually, Kev.
They're setting off fireworks because it's 8 o'clock.
That's bizarre.
They think that there are certain people, a very, very small, obviously a very small segment of people who their body,
I think you call them the X-Men, Scott.
yeah, their body is actually producing acetone.
Wow.
Acetone is flammable, right? And they're extruding this acetone through their pores, and it could be something very simple like lighting a cigarette or something like that, and then they burst into flame. They're exposed to something that may actually.
You're literally sitting there doused in flammable juice, man.
Yeah, you're literally producing flammable juices that could catch fire. And it could also be something as simple as, say, because they found people like burned in their, like spontaneous human combustion in a chair or something. It could have been something as simple as them putting on like a wool blanket and a spark, like a static electricity, static spark, and then it catches them on fire, or something like that. And so, I mean, that's what I thought was interesting, is that they were actually looking into a scientific sort of explanation for it. But I also still think that there's a lot.
It's one of the weirdest. Yeah, it's one of the weirdest things ever, man.
I wonder, what is the mysterious universe got to say about it?
It'll be delightful, whatever it is. So it says here, bizarre cases of survivors of said spontaneous human combustion. So it says one persistent feature of the world of the weird is the phenomenon known as spontaneous human combustion, which is when a human being is immolated by fire that seems to have no discernible cause or external source of ignition. Now, in most cases, there are strange details surrounding these cases, such as bodies that were charred by extremely high temperatures, yet left the surroundings or even clothing untouched, or of cases in which certain body parts have somehow managed to remain unscathed while everything else is ash. Now, just think of that there. I mean, think of the heat that you're having to generate. That's like a furnace,
Now, what I saw kind of explained about this, and like I said, I'm just kind of coming at this from the more sort of scientific explanation of what their theory, but they call it the candle wick effect, where you burn a candle, right? The candle isn't exploding and blowing fire everywhere. It's burning slowly in one spot. You're burning an oil. They think that could be the case in this, that you're having a high temperature burn, but it's a slow burn because it's like the fat in the body and all of that. It's like an oil lamp burning. And so, you could have something burned real hot in one area, but then not that far away, nothing is touched, because it's like a slow burn, like a wick burning. So I mean that could be a possible reason for that. I don't know. It's still really weird though. It's still really, really, really weird, and who knows? I mean,
big time. And my mother is sitting listening to this. She'll be loving this. She's dead ghoulish. She likes the woo, but this kind of ghoulery. She likes these kind of ghoulish types of things, man.
Yeah, my mom's kind of like that
Is
too.
Ghoulery a word? Have we just invented a word? If you're into the ghoulish, are you into the ghoulery?
Are you? Yes, the ghoulery.
Do they have ghoulery at the gulag, Scott?
Yes, plenty of ghoulery at the gulag.
As long as they're not burning people. So it says here, it is a phenomenon that has been written off in literature for centuries. And one mostly stable feature of these cases is that the victim does not survive the ordeal. Indeed, whoa, hey, thank you.
This is great stuff, let's go. Brown chicken, brown cow. Puff puff pass for the Wookiee. Warren, thank you.
It's like we've just started to like freeball it, if you can say that. Well, I just did, so we're freeballing it. Twice I said it. Let's do it. So it says here, written off for centuries. Yeah, indeed, most cases are known for their violent aftermath, in which the corpse or parts of the corpse are burned beyond recognition, and survivors are scarce. Yet, although rare, there are a few people who have been the victim of apparent spontaneous human combustion who have lived to tell the tale, and here are some of them. So many of these reports come from pretty far back in time, and the earliest we will look at here is 1776. It all revolves around an Italian friar by the name of Don Gio Mario Bartoli, who seems to have somehow drawn fire to him to spontaneously combust, and yet live to tell the tale. In October of that year, he was in the small town of Fileto, and after conducting some business in the town, he retired for the evening and at his brother-in-law's house. Now, not long after he closed himself into his room for the night, the other residents were alarmed to hear Bertoli screaming loudly as if in pain, and when they rushed to his aid, they found the friar surrounded by an aura of blue flame. Oddly, as the relatives approached, the flames are said to have actually cringed away from them as if they were aware of their presence, before dissipating completely, leaving Bertoli moaning in agony. One report of the odd event reads, perceiving the cries of the priest, they repaired instantly to the apartment and, on entering it, found him extended on the paved floor and enveloped in a thin flame, which receded as they approached him, and at length entirely vanished. They placed him as soon as possible upon the bed and administered to him every kind of aid that was at hand. Now, although the friar survived the incident, he was suffering serious burns, and when he was able to articulate what had happened, he explained that it felt as if an unseen hand had struck him, after which he had erupted in flames. Now, oddly, it was found that although his body was burned and his silk cap had been burned to a crisp, his shirt and his trousers were undamaged, and his hair had remained unscathed too, despite burns on his face. Making it stranger still was that, although there had been quite a bit of fire, the room had no smoke or odour of the fire, and nothing in the vicinity had been damaged. And when Bertoli was brought to a physician for an examination, he was found to be in quite a rough state, and the French physician Francois-Emmanuel Fedori would describe it in the excruciating detail, writing, on the following morning, the patient was examined by M. Battaglia, who found the integuments of the right arm almost entirely detached and pendant from the flesh. From the shoulders to the thighs, the integuments were equally injured, and on the right hand, the part was most injured. Mortification had already commenced, which, notwithstanding immediate scarification, rapidly extended itself. Now, the patient complained of a burning thirst and was horribly convulsed. He passed by stool, putrid and bilious matter, and was exhausted by continual vomiting, accompanied by a fever and delirium. On the fourth day, after 2 hours of comatose insensibility, he expired. Now, during the whole period of this suffering, it was impossible to trace any symptomatic affection. A short time previous to his decease, M. Battaglia observed with astonishment that putrefaction had made so much progress that his body already exhaled an insufferable odour. Worms crawled from it on the bed, and the nails had become detached from the left hand. Now, boys,
Wow.
this
Ouch.
sounds a whole lot more than spontaneous combustion going on with this guy, right?
So, I mean, it sounds like he suffered burns over his whole body, and then like infection and, rot set in. And that was that. And, for that time, 1776, that time frame, probably not much they could do to save somebody. It's not like they could give him skin grafts or anything like that. Just his flesh kind of burnt away, and
he's stinking up the room before he's even passed. What's that all about? There's worms coming out of him?
That's a pretty horrific scene.
Big time. Andy, what do you make of this one, man? This is some hocus pocus going on here, man.
That's some sorcery and witchcraft I don't seem to want to partake in.
Yeah,
Catching on fire.
He's definitely like crossed paths with a black cat or crossed a gypsy or something, man.
That dude just has some straight up bad luck, dude.
Yeah,
That's what
bad
that
juju
is.
going on. It says, in the end, it has never been ascertained exactly what happened to Bertoli, and no explanation offered that really explains the entirety of the very bizarre phenomenon that he experienced. It remains a historical oddity and a curious case of a person who survived what certainly at least appears to be spontaneous human combustion. Our next weird case comes from 1822 in the countryside of France. One summer day, a local man named Renato was out in the countryside of the village of Loignan when he allegedly felt a sudden sharp pain in his right index finger. He casually glanced to it, and his eyes widened in terror as he realized that his finger was actually on fire. When he waved his fingers around, the whole hand ignited. He wildly batted his hand to his pants, setting them on fire as well, and his left hand erupted into flames. When he clapped, that would be a nightmare. What do you do with it? Where do you put this burning hand? Everything you touch,
It's like it's
nightmare,
been
dude.
out of a comedic a comedy, dude.
It is, it's bizarre.
They say to stop, drop, and roll, and then like as you're rolling, it's bursting into flames even more.
He's like, I'm doing everything I was told. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help
Bad,
me,
man.
Oprah, with your witchcraft.
Now in a panic, the man dashed as fast as he could to his house and screamed at his wife to bring him a bucket of cold water in which to douse the fire. But plunging his hands into the water failed to stop the flames. He then tried shoving his... I'd have passed out by now. He then tried shoving his hands into wet mud and even tried milk. But this didn't work either. I tell you, this guy's really keeping his faculties about him for like being on fire. And by the time he had attracted a crowd of curious onlookers milling about, were they all like standing taking bets on like what would finally put the fire out?
What's going on? I mean, is he just sitting there with his hand on fire? He's like, all right, let's try the milk. Bring the milk bucket in. Dump it in. No,
Reno, wait a minute. We've got a couple of guys coming in from down a few miles away. Can you hold on? Just keep smouldering away in the corner till they get here. It says one of these gawking spectators then brought him some holy water, and this seemed to do the trick. Now, before we go on, I'm starting to see back in 1700s, 1800s, the whole phenomenon of spontaneous combustion seems to have a kind of churchy feel about it, like demonic-y type, or at least that's what they were kind of hocus pocus going on here, man.
You've been smited, my friend.
Do you think the gawking spectator was a demonic entity? Was it an imp?
Ooh.
Do you think it was? I think it was. Anyway, oddly, although his clothes where he had touched them were burned, his hands were remarkably intact. Well, hang on. They've been burning for 5 minutes. There's people coming to watch this, suffering only minor burns considering how long they'd been ablaze. This curious case appears in 1822 in the French medical journal Nouveau Journal de Médecine Chirurgie Pharmacie Volume 15. That comes right after Volume 14, which is called Choking on a Snail. And is an odd historical account that doesn't seem to have ever been solved. Well,
You know what it kind of reminds me of though? Like, so maybe going back.
I love the French, man.
We've been going to the France a lot lately, haven't we?
I'm just waiting for somebody to burst into fire and eject themselves from a plane. Oh, oh, my hands, ablaze.
I'm going to go make me some French fries and some crepes in the middle of the air.
Oh dear me.
So like going to the theory of like the body producing acetone, right, and extruding it from the pores. You know, have you ever seen like people, you know, messing around with like was it like rubbing alcohol or anything like that, and they can kind of light their hand on fire and you see like the blue flame, but it doesn't really burn them. You know, it makes me wonder if that's the kind of thing that's happening. If like, you know, maybe he got an electrical, you know, like a static, you know, a little static charge hit his finger and it lit the acetone that was being extruded from his skin. And then would it make sense that if he started waving that around, you know, that fire kind of starts hitting other areas of his skin where the acetone is being extruded from, and then he claps his hands together and, oh look, you know, your other hand is extruding acetone as well, and it catches on fire. And so, you know, because your body's just extruding this stuff, so maybe that's what's going on here. I don't know.
It's like the redneck with the gas can trying to get the fire to be bigger, and he pours the gasoline onto the fire and immediately realizes that was a bad idea and starts shaking it trying to get it out and puts the whole yard on fire. It's the same effect.
Exactly.
Retarditis.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would sound so funny in a French accent. It really would.
But it still doesn't explain why, you know, he couldn't put it out with all these different things, but then all of a sudden the holy water happens to be what works.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you see. So while these cases have so far mostly been met with horror and desperate panic, there's another case from 1835 that appeared in the American Journal of Medical Sciences, Volume 17, and is notable for just how calm the victim was. Now, in January of that year, a professor at the University of Nashville by the name of James Hamilton was doing an experiment in which he was outside making atmospheric measurements. Now, as he went about checking his barometer, thermometer, and hygrometer, he felt a sudden acute pain in his thigh on his left leg. Now, at first, he tried to ignore it, but it got steadily more intense until the pain was nearly unbearable. When he examined his leg, he then noticed that there was a flame emanating from the point of pain, right above the cloth of his pants. Now, perhaps it was his scientific inquisitiveness that guided his actions then, because he calmly cupped his hands around the flame in order to cut off its oxygen supply, and it went out and the pain subsided greatly. He then went about inspecting his leg. He found upon the skin a dry spot about the size of a dime that seemed more like a scrape than a burn. Curiously, a hole was found to have been burned through his drawers in a perfect circle where the pain had been. Yet the underwear between the skin and the outer clothing remained strangely untouched. It was all very weird, but the professor could not see no need for medical attention and calmly went back to his experiment, just as calmly as he'd dealt with the spontaneous flame that had spewed from his leg. The strange wound would take longer to heal than would be expected, and the professor made a full recovery. and it is considered by the journal to be a reliable case of partial spontaneous combustion. That's a bit of a weird one, right? And then the whole reaction, oh look, I'm on fire. Let me just cup that flame. Oh,
Do you think this is how the
flame.
story of Ghost Rider was created?
You think so?
No, I'm saying, do you think? Man, I don't know. Like, because in the chat they're talking about the Ghost Rider. It's like God is setting these people on fire. Like, he wants them gone. Like, they're just
Like I said,
this is fine.
How
I'm on
dare
fire.
you?
like I said, you've been smited.
Are you serious? Are you serious, guys? We got breaking.
You know it, but I'm telling you. So then, let's go back. Hang on, where are we now? It says there have been more modern cases of this as well. In 1974, a door-to-door salesman by the name of Jack Angel allegedly woke up at his mobile home in Savannah, Georgia, in the United States to find his hands, arms, back, and chest covered with burns. Now, this was very odd, as he was not a smoker, and there was no source of flame, and nothing around him was burned, including his clothes, which were unscathed. He claims that doctors told him that whatever had happened did so internally and had originated from his left arm. The case gets a little suspicious when, in later years, he changed the story to say that he had been sprayed by scalding hot water as he fixed the mobile home's water pressure. But then in an episode of TV series That's Incredible, he reverted back to the original tale. Don't know. I'm not buying that one. I don't feel it.
I hear some BS is what I'm hearing.
So in 1985, we also have the case of decorated Vietnam War veteran, definitely a legitimate guy. Frank Baker was his name. He's friends with Dave, who says that he had a strange experience while on a fishing trip with some buddies. Did I write? Is this? I know what happened to Frank. I hope it isn't that story. He says that was just where he was sitting there on the sofa chatting away in their cabin. His body suddenly burst into flames for no reason at all.
This is the guy that I was talking about. That I think they did a whole. This was the show that I seen him on. I think they did it on the Science Channel or something like that. But yeah, this is a very interesting one right here.
So it says they were able to put the flames out, and Baker said, "I had no idea that was taking place on my body. None. He was getting ready for fishing and sitting on the couch. Everything was great. Pete was sitting next to me, and we were having a hell of a time. Making it even stranger is that when doctors examined him, he was informed that the fire seemed to have burned from inside out. And the case was featured on an episode, like Scotty says, on the Science Channel's Unexplained Files. As of yet, there's no real consensus on what causes the human spontaneous combustion phenomenon, and it has long remained a fixture of the world of woo. However, while there is usually no one left to give a first-hand account of what it was like to experience it, these cases we have looked at here are very intriguing indeed. I think the most intriguing one's probably the dude that kind of burst into fire on his leg and calmly just kind of put it out. Or the boy where his hands went on fire and he started like just having that chain reaction thing going on. I don't know what causes that. That's got to be up there for me with one of the weirder kind of phenomenon out there. Even if it's the acetone thing, it's still, I mean, how bizarre. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely just a weird thing, dude.
Right.
And
yes, and we are almost on our finished up time because we've gone way over the time we usually do on our weekend here. Way over the time. But yeah, last thoughts on spontaneous boom boom.
I think it. I'm not. I don't have like I'm on the fence. I can't say I can go either way. I think maybe there are incidents where there is a legit scientific explanation, like maybe the body is producing some kind of acetone, because they really went into some like in-depth breakdown on the Science Channel about it, and how the body is like breaking stuff down, and it's just kind of producing an overabundance of this kind of like acetate or acetone sort of flammable compound, and they think that might be part of it. But there's other instances where I think it truly
it could be
legitly like unexplained.
It could be the big man. Raw.
No, it's the other one. He said, "No, I saw you kick that dog. You're gonna get it now."
Is that what it is? Is it that old nasty god from the Old Testament? That whole fire and brimstone.
It was like lightning bolt, yeet, and then they just got on fire.
Yeah, man. I think we need to bring that one back. We need to bring that one back. This woke one. No, we need the old dude. We need the fire and brimstone guy back. Definitely. So, folks, thank you for tuning in today. It's been a blast. Remember, stay safe. Do what you got to do. We'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, Joe will be here. No doubt Popeye will make some kind of bold and brash late entrance like he does. And I'll also be over on the Kev Baker show with Bill Bean tomorrow at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And that's 4 p.m. on the West Coast. Midnight over here in the UK. So keep your eyes open on the channel for that. Justa, thank you for the super chat. Absolutely top notch. Thank you very much. And yeah, Andy, great hanging out with you again.
Yeah, dudes.
Yeah.
I love BSing with you guys on here, and
we got through a whole heap of topics tonight, man. It was like a smorgasbord, as Joe puts it. So, folks, we are out of here. I'll let Greta have one of the last words.
How dare you?
She likes to do it. But, we're out of here, folks. We'll be back tomorrow. The only thing we didn't talk about tonight is bloody black goo. Keep your mind open. Keep looking for the woo, but not to the point where your brain turns to black goo. And sending all of our KBS love and wishes to Kim Jong. Is he gone?